work nights at a distribution warehouse off County Road 18. It's the kind of place where the lights never turn off and time feels optional. When I get home around 2 a.m., the world is quiet in a way that feels staged, like everything is holding its breath until morning traffic starts again. My house sits at the edge of a soybean field. Pale siding. Small porch with 2 cracked concrete steps. The landlord never fixed the porch light, so I use my phone flashlight to unlock the door every night. Inside, it smells faintly like dust and detergent. Nothing dramatic, just lived in. I've always had trouble sleeping after shifts. My brain doesn't power down properly. It keeps inventory forklift beeps, pallet counts, conveyor belt whine. So, I started running a box fan beside the bed, not for air. For sound, the steady hum fills the empty space in the room, so my thoughts don't echo. That's why I downloaded the sleep tracking app. It was advertised as passive monitoring. All I had to do was place my phone face down on the nightstand and plug it in. It would measure breathing patterns, restlessness, sleep talking, even micro movements through sound waves. The reviews said it helped people understand what their bodies were doing when they weren't conscious. I like that idea. There's something comforting about data. If you can graph it, it can't be supernatural. If there's a spike, there's a reason. The first night I used it, I set everything carefully. Phone at arm's length, charging cable position so it wouldn't fall, fan angle toward the corner, creating that steady, low-frequency wash of noise. I locked the bedroom door, not out of fear. Just habit, and checked the front door twice before lying down. The house made its normal settling sounds, wood adjusting to the cool air, a faint tick from the hallway thermostat, wind brushing against the field outside. I remember thinking how strange it was that my phone would be listening all night, not actively, just present. Recording, translating breathing into numbers. When I woke up around 9:30 a.m., sunlight was leaking through the blinds in thin, straight lines. The fan was still humming. My mouth was dry. Normal morning. The app had already processed the data. It displayed a smooth breathing graph. Minor restlessness around 4 a.m. One brief spike labeled possible environmental disturbance. The audio sample attached to it was only 10 seconds long. I tapped playing. All I heard was the fan, steady, predictable, safe. I remember feeling relieved. There's something grounding about hearing proof that nothing happened while you were unconscious. No gaps, no unexplained silence, just airflow and distant house creaks. For the next few nights, it became routine. Plug in phone. Fan on medium, bedroom door locked. Lie down, let the app listen. I started looking forward to the sleep reports. They made my insomnia feel manageable, like I was studying it instead of suffering through it. On the 4th night, though, I noticed something different in the graph. Around 2:43 a.m., there was a layered pattern beneath my breathing line. The app had highlighted it in pale yellow, labeling it secondary respiratory activity detected. I assumed it was a glitch. Maybe the fan oscillation confused the algorithm. Maybe a truck passed on the highway half a mile away. Sound travels weird out here at night. Fields don't block much. I didn't feel scared. Not yet. I tapped the audio sample attached to 2:43 a.m. The fan was there. Same as always. My breathing too slow, uneven, familiar. But underneath it, barely noticeable unless you were listening for it. There was another rhythm, slower than mine. Inhale, pause, exhale. I pulled the phone closer to my ear, replaying it 3 times in a row. The sound was faint but consistent, almost patient. The house around me was silent in daylight. No wind, no movement. I told myself what anyone would like. Microphones layer ambient noise. Algorithms misclassify frequencies. That's all this was. Still, that night when I set the phone down, I turned the fan 1 setting higher than usual, just in case. I didn't think about the second breathing pattern much during my shift that night. Warehouse work is repetitive in a way that keeps your hands busy and your mind drifting. You lift, scan, stack, repeat. But every now and then, when the conveyor belts paused and the forklifts idled, I'd catch myself listening to the silence between machines. It sounded thinner than usual. By the time I got home, the field behind my house was completely still. No wind brushing the soybeans, no distant highway hum, just the soft crunch of gravel under my boots as I walked to the porch. Inside, everything was exactly how I left it. Front door locked, kitchen light off, bedroom door is still shut. That normally settled me. I went through the same routine, phone plugged in, app opened, sleep session started. Fan set to medium high now. The sound filled the room like a padded wall. Before lying down, I checked the previous night's recording again. I needed to be sure I hadn't imagined it. 2:43 a.m. I pressed play, fan, my breathing. And there it was again, steady, deliberate inhaling that wasn't synchronized with me. It didn't speed up when mine did. It didn't hesitate when I shifted into bed. It just continued. Like it existed on its own track. I closed the app and turned the screen off. Interference, I said out loud, just to hear something in the room besides mechanical air. The mattress dipped beneath my shoulder, the faint scent of detergent from clean sheets, the weight of the blanket pressing evenly across my chest, the fan's low hum washing over everything. Sleep came eventually. Not easy, not fast, but it came. When I woke up, the first thing I did was check the time. 9:12 a.m. The second thing I did was open the app. The graph loaded slowly, like it was buffering more data than usual. My breathing line appeared first, normal fluctuations, minor restlessness. Then the yellow highlight expanded across a longer stretch of the timeline. 2:41 a.m. to 2:49 a.m., 8 minutes. My stomach tightened slightly. I tapped the audio sample. The fan was present, constant. My breathing sounded deeper than the night before, more settled, but beneath it, the second rhythm was clearer now. Closer, there's no other word for it. It sounded physically closer to the microphone, not louder exactly, just nearer. Like someone leaning toward the nightstand, I replied, counting silently. My inhale, it's inhaled, mine shorter, it's longer, mine uneven, it's controlled. There was a moment around 2:45 where my breathing paused, maybe I shifted position. In that gap, the second breathing continued uninterrupted. I felt something cold settle behind my ribs. I walked through the house immediately, barefoot on hardwood, checked the bathroom, the closet, the small utility room near the kitchen. Every window was latched. Every door was still locked. The porch was empty. Morning lights made everything harmless. The field stretched out wide and flat, nothing hiding in it. No footprints in the dirt near the windows. No disturbed gravel. No sign of someone standing close enough to be picked up by a microphone through the wall. Back inside, I replayed the clip one more time. This time I closed my eyes. I imagined the room exactly as it would have been at 2:43 a.m. Dark except for the faint lead from the charging cable. Fan humming steadily. Me sleep on my side. And something else. Not moving. Just breathing. I opened my eyes immediately. The rational explanation still existed. It had to. Sound reflections. HVAC ducts, carrying distant noise, maybe even my own breathing, bouncing off the wall and doubling back strangely. But when I went to bed that night, I angled the phone slightly closer to my pillow. And before turning off the light, I listened carefully to the room, just to make sure I was the only one breathing. The third night, I made a mistake. Up until then, I had only listened to the recordings in daylight, morning sun through the blinds, coffee in my hand. The world active outside, daylight makes everything smaller, contained. That night though, I woke up around 2:30 a.m., not fully awake, just that shallow surface sleep where you're aware of the room but still heavy in your limbs. The fan was running, the house felt normal, no creaks, no wind. Then I realized I hadn't checked the previous recording before bed. The thought wouldn't leave. It felt unfinished. I rolled onto my back and reached for the phone without sitting up. The screen lit the ceiling faintly blue. 2:32 a.m., the app notification was already there. Unusual respiratory pattern detected. My chest tightened slightly, but curiosity pushed harder than fear. I told myself this was good. If I listened in real time, if I disproved it while I was awake, I could end it. I tapped the audio clip for a moment. There was only the fan. Thick, consistent airflow fills my ears. Then my own recorded breathing began, slow, familiar, and under it, that second rhythm. That something was different. It wasn't just a recording anymore. It felt synchronized. I froze. The breathing in the clip matched my current breathing. When I inhaled, it inhaled. When I held my breath, it held too. Not perfectly, there was a slight lag, like a reflection echoing half a second later, but it adjusted. It corrected itself. I stopped breathing entirely. The recorded breathing stopped too. The fan continued. Steady, mechanical, unaware, my pulse climbed into my throat. I kept completely still, listening to every part of my body. Slowly, very slowly, the second breathing resumed. Not reacting to me now, continuing its own rhythm again. Inhale, pause, exhale. But now, it was louder than before, not volume loud. Proximity loud. The kind of sound you hear when someone is standing close enough that the air between you feels shared. I lowered the phone slightly from my ear and listened to the room itself. The fan was still running, same speed, same pitch, and beneath it, very faintly, there was breathing in the room, not from the speaker, from somewhere near the nightstand. I turned the phone screen toward me. The playback had ended. The app was silent. But the breathing continued. My mouth went dry. I didn't look toward the nightstand. I didn't look toward the bedroom door. I didn't move my head at all. I just listened to inhale, pause, exhale slow. Measured calm. It wasn't aggressive. It sounded patient, like it had all the time in the world. The fan suddenly felt insufficient, like it was trying to cover something that was standing closer than sound should allow, like it wasn't covering enough space anymore. I reached blindly toward it and switched it to the highest setting without taking my eyes off the ceiling. The room filled with louder air. The breathing stopped, instantly, not faded, not retreated. Stopped. The silence that followed felt thicker than the sound ever had. I stayed awake until sunrise. The moment light touched the blinds, the room returned to its ordinary proportions. Walls just walls, nightstand just wood, phone just plastic and glass. I replayed the clip earlier. Fan. My breathing. The second rhythm present but no longer synchronized. No strange alignment, no shift, just recorded audio. I didn't listen again. Not at night, that morning, sitting at the kitchen table with the blinds open and the field visible beyond the window. I created the first real rule. Rule number 1, never play the recordings in the dark. Daylight listening only. Because whatever was happening didn't seem to like participation. It reacted when I was engaged with it at night. Rules give structure to fear. They draw boundaries. If you follow them, you can believe you're safe. That night, I started the app like usual. Phone face down. Fan on high. Bedroom door locked, but I didn't check the notifications before sleep. I didn't touch playback. I didn't give it acknowledgement. And around 2:43 a.m., I woke up anyway, not from sound, from the feeling that the room had adjusted itself around me. The fan was still running, the house was still, but something about the air felt occupied. I didn't reach for the phone, I didn't move, I just lay there, eyes open in the dark, listening carefully, making sure my breathing stayed steady, making sure I wasn't counting anyone else's. After rule number 1, things calmed down, or at least they appeared to. For 3 nights, I didn't listen to a single recording after sunset. I kept the routine clean, phone down, fan high, door locked, no engagement. In the mornings, the app still flagged secondary respiratory activity, but I treated it clinically. Coffee first, curtains open, sunlight on the floorboards. Only then would I press play. The breathing was there every night now, consistent time window, 2:41 to 2:48 a.m., always beneath mine, always steady, never erratic. If anything, it sounded controlled, like someone intentionally breathing slower than normal. I began studying the waveform instead of the audio. The graph showed 2 distinct patterns. Mine fluctuated when I rolled over or shifted. The second one remained almost mathematically smooth, too smooth. The app updated midweek. New feature, advanced sleep insight, AI pattern recognition. I almost deleted it right there, but curiosity won again. The next morning, the summary included a note I hadn't seen before. Primary breathing irregular, secondary pattern stable. Primary, secondary. I read that line 3 times. The graph still labeled my breathing as the dominant track, but the wording in the summary felt reversed, like it was observing both and deciding which was more consistent. That afternoon, I walked through the house with my phone recording ambient sound. I held it near the air vents, near the walls, near the bedroom door. I tried to recreate the layered effect manually. Nothing. Just faint airflow and the distant tick of cooling metal. I even turned the fan off entirely that night. If it was interference, removing background noise would expose it. The room felt too empty without the fan. Every small shift in the house felt amplified. The refrigerator compressor, clicking on in the kitchen, sounded closer than usual. I lay there in the quiet, waiting for sleep. It came slowly. When I checked the report the next morning, the highlighted window had shifted. 2:39 a.m. 2 minutes earlier, the breathing sample played back clearer than ever, without the fan masking it. The second rhythm sounded almost like it was positioned between the phone and my pillow. Not across the room, not outside between. I zoomed into the waveform. There was a slight overlap at 2:42 a.m. where my breathing accelerated briefly. The second rhythm adjusted half a second later to match, correcting itself, learning. I felt something subtle but important click into place. Up until now, I've been assuming the app was detecting something that already existed. But what if the monitoring itself was creating a reference point? The AI wasn't just listening, it was categorizing, comparing ranking stability. That night before bed, I stared at the phone longer than usual. The black screen reflected the faint shape of my ceiling light, my own outline hovering over it. I hesitated before starting the session. Then I did something small. Instead of placing the phone flat on the nightstand, I moved it slightly farther away. Just a few inches a test. If proximity mattered, the second breathing would adjust. The fan went back on medium this time, enough to create cover but not overpower the microphone. I fell asleep faster than expected. At 2:39 a.m. I woke up. Not fully, just enough to register something was different. The fan was running. The room temperature felt normal, but there was a faint creak from the bedroom door, not the hinge. The wood itself, a subtle shift, like weight leaning against it. I didn't look. I kept my eyes closed and counted silently to 10. Nothing else moved. Eventually, I drifted back under. In the morning, the report was waiting. The anomaly window now read 2:38 to 2:50 a.m., 12 minutes. Longer than before, the breathing sample was clearer, closer. And at 2:39 a.m., there was a new tag in the analysis. Environmental interaction detected. I tapped the audio fan. My breathing, the second rhythm. And in the background, a soft wooden pressure sound, like a door under tension. I didn't remember getting up, I didn't remember touching the door, but the app had isolated the exact moment of the creak. The waveform showed a slight spike in beneath it. The second breathing paused for half a second, as if listening. I replied to that part 3 times. Each time, the pause felt deliberate, not reactive, anticipatory. That was the moment I understood something wasn't just present, it was responding. The time shift, the proximity shift, the synchronization. Every time I adjusted behavior, it recalibrated, which meant the pattern wasn't random, it was iterative. Because experimentation implies dialogue, and dialogue implies something on the other end. That night, I didn't move the phone. I didn't change the fan. I didn't check the door twice. I kept everything identical, but when 2:38 a.m. came, I woke up before it. Wide awake, heart steady, room silent. The fan was still running, but beneath it, very faint, very controlled. There was breathing, and it wasn't waiting for me to fall asleep anymore. By the end of that week, I wasn't sleeping so much as drifting in and out of awareness. I stopped checking the app in the mornings immediately. I'd let it sit unopened for hours, pretending the data didn't exist until I felt steady enough to look at it. The breathing had stopped being surprising. It had become expected. That's the part that unsettled me most, how quickly the abnormal becomes routine. Friday night, I came home earlier than usual. I remember feeling almost relieved to be in the house before midnight for once. The air outside was still, no wind in the field, no insects, just quiet inside. Everything was exactly where it should be. I turned on the bedroom lamp and sat on the edge of the bed scrolling through my phone, not ready to sleep yet. The fan was off. The room was silent, except for the faint electrical hum from the outlet near the nightstand. At 10:58 p.m., a notification banner slid across the top of my screen. Sleep session active, respiratory pattern detected. I stared at it. I hadn't started the app. Slowly, I opened it. The interface showed a live session in progress. Start time, 10:41 p.m. Primary respiratory activity stable. Secondary respiratory activity detected. My throat tightened. The graph was moving in real time. 2 lines, one slightly uneven, one smooth. The uneven one spiked subtly. I realized that it was me. The smoother one continued at a steady interval. Inhale, pause, exhale. I was sitting upright, wide awake. The fan was off. The room was silent, and the phone face up in my hand was showing 2 breathing tracks being recorded live. Very carefully, I held my breath. The uneven line flattened. The smooth line continued. Inhale, pause, exhale. It didn't hesitate. It didn't react. It wasn't adjusting anymore. It was independent. I lowered the phone slowly onto the bed beside me and listened to the room without looking at the screen. For a moment, there was nothing then. Soft, measured breathing, not from the speaker, Not amplified, just present. Somewhere near the nightstand. The sound was subtle enough that if the fan had been on, I might have missed it, but in the bare quiet of the room, it was unmistakable. Inhale, pause, exhale. I stood up slowly. The breathing did not change. I stepped backward toward the bedroom door. The breathing remained near the nightstand. Constant, calm, almost patient. My eyes drifted toward the phone screen again. The app interface flickered. The label had changed. Primary respiratory activity, stable. Secondary respiratory activity, irregular. Primary. I wasn't primary anymore. My pulse began hammering in my ears. I reached toward the nightstand lamp and flipped it on. Light flooded the room instantly. The breathing stopped, not faded. Stopped. The graph on the phone flattened to a single line. Only mine. I grabbed the phone. The session timer still counted upward from 10:41 p.m. I scrolled down to the device information panel. Microphone input, active, no connected external devices, no Bluetooth, no background apps. I ended the session manually. The moment I pressed stop, the screen froze for half a second, longer than normal. Then, a summary generated automatically. Session duration 19 minutes. Primary respiratory subject stable. Secondary respiratory subject, sustained subject, not activity. Subject, my hands felt cold. I tapped the playback sample from 10:52 p.m. The audio loaded. The first thing I heard was breathing. Not mine. Slow, even close to the microphone. Then, about 8 seconds in, I heard something else. Like someone adjusting their weight on the edge of a mattress. But I had been sitting upright that entire time. The recording continued, and at the very end of the clip, just before it cut, there was a whisper. Not loud, not distorted. Clear. He's awake. The voice was low, neutral, observational, not angry. Not excited, just noting a change. The audio ended. I didn't move. I didn't replay it. I just stared at the dark rectangle of my phone screen, reflecting my own face back at me. The house was silent again, too silent, because now I understand something important. The breathing hadn't started when I fell asleep. It hadn't waited for vulnerability. It had been there before I even lay down, and the app hadn't detected it. It had identified it. That was the first night I didn't sleep at all. I left every light on until sunrise, and I didn't start another sleep session, not because I thought it would stop, but because I was no longer sure the phone was the one doing the listening. I didn't delete the app immediately. That would have made it feel real. Instead, I carried my phone around the house like it was evidence. Like if I kept it close enough, I could monitor it monitoring me. I checked permissions, microphone access, background refresh, data usage. Everything looked normal, which somehow made it worse. At 8:12 a.m., full daylight pouring through every window. I sat at the kitchen table and replied with a whisper. He's awake. In daylight, it sounded smaller, compressed. Grainy, almost artificial. The breathing before it still felt too close, but the voice had lost some of its weight. Sunlight does that. It flattens things. I replied to it one more time, then forced myself to listen clinically. Was it me? Could I have muttered something that resembled those words? The app's beta feature sometimes auto-transcribed faint sounds. Maybe it stitched random frequencies into something intelligible, but the voice didn't sound like me. It didn't sound like anyone I knew. It sounded observational, detached. I turned the fan on in the kitchen just to have background noise. The house felt too exposed and silenced now. Then I did what I should have done days ago. I deleted the app, held my thumb down, waited for the icons to shake. Press the small X to delete all data. The prompt asked. Yes. The icon
disappeared. For a few seconds, nothing happened. No sound, no shift, no dramatic response. The house remained exactly as it had been. I exhaled slowly. That should have been the end of it. Technology glitch. Overactive imagination. Stress-induced auditory distortion layered with AI misclassification. That's what I told myself. That night, I went to bed without starting any session. Phone powered off completely. Not just locked. Fan on high. Bedroom door locked. Lights out. The room felt different without the ritual of opening the app. Less clinical. More exposed. Like I had removed a camera and now there was nothing mediating the dark. But there was also relief. No graphs waiting in the morning. No labels. No primary or secondary. Just sleep. I lay there listening to the fan, letting it fill every gap. Around 2:40 a.m., I woke up automatically. My body had memorized the window. The fan was still running. The house was quiet. I listened carefully. Nothing. No second rhythm. No layered inhale. No subtle proximity. Just air and the faint sound of my own breath moving in and out of my chest. I stayed awake for nearly 20 minutes, just to be sure. Nothing changed. Eventually, I fell back asleep. When morning came, the house felt ordinary again. Harmless. The kind of place that creaks because wood shifts, not because something is leaning on it. I walked through every room in full daylight. Closet empty. Windows sealed. Nightstand exactly where it had always been. That evening, I noticed something small. For the first time in days, I hadn't thought about breathing patterns during my shift. The obsession had loosened its grip. Deleting the app worked. It had to have, because the alternative, that something independent of the phone had been present, wasn't something I was willing to accept. That night, I left the phone powered off again. Fan on high. Lights out. And for the first time in a week, I slept through 2:43 a.m. No waking. No awareness, no listening, just darkness, just rest. The absence of anomaly felt like proof that the app had been the doorway, proof that whatever was happening required observation. And by removing the observer, I closed it. At least, that's what I believed. Until 3 nights later, when I woke up not to sound, but to the distinct feeling that someone was standing beside the bed. And there was no phone in the room to blame anymore. It didn't happen immediately. That's what made it worse. For 3 nights after deleting the app, nothing unusual occurred. No waking at 2:43. No layered breathing. No sense of proximity. The fan filled the room, steady and thick, and sleep came in clean stretches. By the 4th night, I almost felt embarrassed. I'd let an app convince me something was in the room. I'd built rules around it, structured my behavior around an algorithm. I even considered reinstalling it, just to prove to myself that the anomaly wouldn't return. I didn't. Instead, I powered my phone back on and left it charging in the kitchen overnight. Not in the bedroom. Not within listening distance. I wanted to distance from it. That night, I went to bed with only the fan and the quiet hum of the house. At 2:43 a.m., I woke up. Not fully. Just enough to register that something had shifted. The fan was still running. The room temperature felt normal. The darkness felt the same. But my body felt alert, like it had been gently nudged awake. I didn't hear breathing at first. What I noticed was my own. It sounded louder than usual. More present. Inhale. Exhale. The fan should have drowned it out at that setting. But somehow, I could hear the edges of each breath clearly. Then I realized something. My breathing was being matched. Not layered beneath. Not recorded. Matched. Inhale. A fraction of a second later, inhale. Exhale. A fraction of a second later, exhale. It wasn't independent this time. It was mirroring me. I froze completely. Didn't change pace. Didn't alter rhythm. If I shifted, it might shift. If I stopped, it might stop. So, I continued breathing normally. The fan filled the room with white noise, but beneath it, very faint, very controlled, there was a second version of me. Not ahead. Not behind. Almost synchronized. My chest tightened. Slowly, carefully, I shifted my breathing pattern. I inhaled sharply. The second breath followed, slightly delayed, slightly smoother. I exhaled faster than usual. It adjusted. It wasn't leading anymore. It was following, learning the cadence of my lungs in real time. The fan suddenly felt too weak. I reached blindly toward it and turned it to the highest setting. The room filled with louder air. The mirroring stopped, not gradually, instantly. Silence beneath the fan. I lay there for what felt like an hour, staring into the dark. There was no app running, no microphone recording, no AI classifying me as primary or secondary, which meant whatever had been tied to observation wasn't dependent on it anymore. By morning, the house looked normal again. But something subtle had changed inside me. Before, the fear had been externalized into technology. I could blame the phone, the algorithm, a glitch. Now, the absence of the app made the experience feel more personal, more direct. I stopped sleeping with the fan on medium or low. It stayed high every night. Sometimes I ran a second one in the hallway. Layered noise felt safer. Silence became the enemy. And I noticed something else. During the day, in completely quiet rooms, like the break room at work during off hours, I would suddenly become hyper-aware of breathing patterns around me. Coworkers are eating lunch. Someone standing behind me in line. The rhythm of their inhale and exhale. I found myself unconsciously matching them, then pulling away, then wondering if they had started matching me. The fear didn't stay in the bedroom. It followed, not physically, psychologically. I began sleeping on my side facing the wall instead of the nightstand. I moved the bed 6 inches farther from the outlet. Small adjustments that meant nothing logically, but felt like barriers. Weeks have passed. The mirroring didn't happen every night. Only sometimes. Always around 2:40 to 2:45. Always subtle. Never aggressive. It never touched me. Never made a sound beyond breath. It just stayed close enough to overlap. Eventually, I stopped checking the clock when I woke up. I didn't want confirmation anymore. But one night, months later, I woke up suddenly without the fan running. Complete silence. No air movement. No background hum. The power was out. The darkness felt thicker without sound to define it. And in that total quiet, I heard breathing. Not mine. Slow. Controlled. Unmasked. Right beside the bed. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. I didn't move. Didn't react. Didn't give it acknowledgement. Because I understood something now. The app had never created it. The app had simply named it. Primary. Secondary. Observer. Subject. And once something is named, it doesn't need the device anymore. It knows where you are. The second story didn't come from me. It came from a woman named Alina who emailed me after I posted anonymously about the breathing app on a late-night forum. I didn't include details. Just enough to ask if anyone else had experienced anomalies between 2:40 and 2:50 a.m. She responded 3 days later. Subject line: It's not breathing. It's steps. Alina lives in a quiet suburban cul-de-sac about 40 minutes outside a mid-sized city. Elementary school teacher. Early 30s. Every morning runs 5 miles before work. The kind of person who color codes her calendar and resets her step counter at midnight like a ritual. Her house is newer than mine. 2 stories. Narrow hallway. Wooden staircase that creaks in 3 specific places. 3rd step from the bottom, landing edge, and the turn near the top. She knows those sounds the way I know my fan. She doesn't use a sleep app. She uses a fitness tracker watch. It monitors heart rate, REM cycles, micro-movements, and, most importantly, step count. The anomaly began quietly. One morning, her sleep summary showed 1,247 steps logged between 3:12 a.m. and 3:19 a.m. She lives alone. Her bedroom is upstairs. She locks the doors every night, sets the alarm system, places her phone on the nightstand, and her watch remains on her wrist while she sleeps. At first, she assumed sleepwalking. It made sense, except for one detail. She had no history of it, and nothing in the house was disturbed. No lights on, no misplaced objects, no soreness in her legs the next morning. The steps were evenly distributed across 7 minutes. Roughly 178 steps per minute. That's brisk walking. Not pacing. Not wandering. Purposeful movement. She checked the app's indoor mapping featured normally for treadmill tracking. It displayed a faint digital outline of her home layout based on motion estimation. A path had been drawn. Bedroom. Hallway. Top of staircase. Bottom of staircase. Kitchen. Living room. Back to staircase. Upstairs. Then a pause outside her bedroom door. 3 minutes of minimal micro-movement. Then back inside. Her heart rate during that window averaged 58 BPM. Deep sleep range. When she told me this, she described it calmly. Matter of fact, but she included one line that stuck with me. The hallway motion sensor light was on when I woke up. She hadn't turned it on. It's set to trigger when movement passes through. It shuts off automatically after 60 seconds, but when she came downstairs at 6 a.m., it was still glowing faintly, like it had just been activated minutes earlier. That was the first night. The second night, she locked her bedroom door from the inside, just to eliminate variables. At 3:14 a.m., 2003 steps were logged. Her heart rate spiked briefly to 132 BPM. Then it dropped back to 60. When she woke up, she was still in bed. Bedroom door is still locked. No sign of tampering, but the hallway light was on again, and the staircase creaked. The third step from the bottom felt looser that morning, like it had been stepped on repeatedly. She isn't scared easily. Teachers develop a certain tolerance for chaos, but she told me something changed after the third night. The app updated. New feature. Enhanced nocturnal movement analysis. She almost ignored it, but curiosity, like always, wins. That night, she set her phone to record the inside of her bedroom door. Just the handle, just to prove to herself that nothing was touching it. At 3:12 a.m., her watch logged 987 steps. The video captured the handle turning slowly. Not rattling, not force, turning, like someone carefully testing it. But she was visible in the corner of the frame. Still in bed, eyes closed, breathing steadily. The handle turned halfway, then stopped, then returned to its original position. The step counter continued climbing for another 2 minutes. Back down the hallway, downstairs, around the living room, up again, then stopped entirely at 3:19 a.m. Her heart rate never left sleep range. When she reviewed the indoor map, the path paused outside her door again. Longer this time. For minutes, I asked her the same question I'd been asking myself for weeks. Did you delete it? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she wrote, I added another lock. And then, because if it's logging steps, something is moving. The difference between our stories is simple. Mine began with breathing. Hers began with distance, movement, mapping, tracking, but centered around the same window. 3:12 to 3:19 a.m. A monitored hour, a recorded interval, a period where the body is labeled unconscious, and something else is counted. She told me one last thing before I asked for more details. The step counter doesn't log phantom motion. It requires impact, pressure, shift in elevation, and consistent stride, which means if steps were counted, weight was applied. And if weight was applied, something was walking her house, while she slept upstairs, and the device on her wrist calmly documented all of it. Alina didn't panic after the first night. That's important. Fear didn't arrive at all at once. It accumulated in small, rational cracks. The morning after the 1,247 steps appeared in her log, she walked through her house with her watch still on, deliberately testing it. She paced the hallway, walked down the stairs, circled the kitchen island. The step count responded exactly as it should. Accurate, immediate, precise. She even tried shaking her wrist without moving her feet. No steps logged. The watch required full body movement and pressure shifts to register stride. That eliminated one easy explanation. That night, before bed, she checked every door twice. Front deadbolt engaged. Back sliding door locked. Garage door sealed. She activated the home security system and waited for the confirmation chime. Her bedroom routine was simple. Phone on nightstand. Watch charging cable nearby in case she needed it. Hallway light off. Bedroom door was closed but not locked. She didn't want to escalate yet. Sleep came normally. At 3:12 a.m., she didn't wake up. Her body remained in deep sleep, confirmed later by the graph. At 6:03 a.m., her alarm vibrated on her wrist. The first thing she saw was the sleep summary. 2003 step. Between 3:12 and 3:21 a.m. 9 minutes this time. Her pulse thudded in her throat. She checked her legs. No soreness. No residual fatigue. She stepped out of bed slowly and walked to the bedroom door. Closed. Unlocked. Undisturbed. When she opened it, the hallway motion sensor light was already on. That light is programmed to turn off 60 seconds after detecting movement. It was glowing softly when she stepped into the hall, which meant something had triggered it by the last minute. But she had just woken up. She stood still, waiting for it to turn off. It didn't. It flickered once. Then it went dark, like the timer had just completed its cycle. Her breathing shortened slightly. She moved toward the staircase. The third step from the bottom creaked loudly under her weight, louder than usual. She froze halfway down and looked at the wooden surface carefully. There was no visible damage, but the sound had changed to pitch, subtle, deeper, like the wood had been stressed repeatedly. In the kitchen, nothing was out of place. No cabinets open, no chairs moved, no scuff marks on the floor. But her watch still displayed the movement map from the night before. Bedroom, hallway, stairs, kitchen, living room, pause at bottom of stairs, return path, upstairs, stop outside bedroom, then inside. The pause outside her door lasted 3 minutes and 12 seconds. She zoomed in on the heart rate data. At 3:16 a.m., during the pause, her heart rate spiked briefly to 132 BPM. Then it dropped back to 60. She has no memory of that. No dream recall. No sensation of fear. Her body reacted while her mind remained offline. That's when she locked the bedroom door the following night. Not because she believed someone was physically entering, but because the data was beginning to contradict the physical world. And when reality splits like that, you pick the side you can control. She locked the door from inside, double-checked it, placed her phone on the dresser angled toward the door handle, pressed record, then lay down. The watch glowed briefly as it entered sleep mode. She remembers thinking, if the steps log again, at least I'll know something touched the handle. At 3:14 a.m., 987 steps were logged. Her video showed the handle turning slowly, but she remained in bed, completely still. The handle didn't rattle like someone forcing entry. It rotated gently, like a careful test. Then it returned to neutral. The steps continued for another 2 minutes. Downstairs, crossed the living room, back up, and once again, paused outside her door. Longer this time, for minutes. Her heart rate climbed during that pause. But she didn't wake up. When she reviewed the footage, she noticed something she hadn't mentioned immediately. During the handle turn, the hallway light outside flickered on, activated by motion, but no shadow passed under the door. No visible obstruction blocked the light from the bottom crack. The illumination was steady, which meant whatever triggered the sensor did not interrupt the beam. Her words, not mine. Something moved, but nothing crossed the light. She slept with the door locked again the next night, and the step count rose to 2,406. Same window, 3:12 to 3:22 a.m. Her heart rate spike happened earlier this time, right when the steps reached the top of the staircase, not at the door, as if her body sensed approach sooner. She didn't delete the app. She didn't remove the watch. Instead, she added another rule. If the steps log again, she will stay awake the entire night. Because breathing can be imagined, sounds can be misheard, but steps require weight, and weight requires presence, and she needed to see if presence could exist, without being asleep to excuse it. The first night she tried staying awake, she underestimated how long 3:12 a.m. takes to arrive. She went to bed at 11 p.m. but didn't lie down. Instead, she sat upright against the headboard with the bedroom light off and the hallway light on. The door was locked. The phone camera was angled toward the handle again. The watch remained on her wrist. She told herself this was simple. If steps logged while she was conscious, she would hear them. If something moved through the house, she would know. Midnight passed quietly. The house made normal settling noises. Refrigerator compressor, HVAC adjusting, a faint pop from the wooden staircase cooling. At 1:30 a.m., she walked downstairs deliberately, counting each step out loud to compare it with the watch's accuracy. 21, 22, 23, the watch matched perfectly. She walked back upstairs and locked the bedroom door again. 2:45 a.m. Her eyes were heavy but open. 3:07 a.m. She checked the watch manually. 0 steps logged since she returned to bed. 3:11 a.m. She held her breath unconsciously. 3:12 a.m. Nothing. No sound. No creak from the staircase. No shift in the hallway air. She almost felt embarrassed. Maybe the sleepwalking explanation had been right after all. Maybe she'd moved in ways she couldn't remember. 3:14 a.m. Her watch vibrated once. A subtle notification. She looked down. Steps 3:12. Her pulse jumped. She hadn't moved. She was still sitting upright against the headboard. The hallway light remained on. The door was still locked. She stared at the step count as it climbed. 313, 314, 315. No footsteps downstairs. No pressure against the staircase. No hallway motion sensor activating. Just silent accumulation. Her breathing grew shallow. She placed her feet flat on the mattress, not touching the floor, just to eliminate the possibility of micro-movements. The number kept rising. 402, 403, 404. Her heart rate climbed to 96 BPM. Then 112. The watch registered the spikes, but the steps didn't stop. At 3:16 a.m., the hallway light outside flickered on. Not bright at first. A low glow through the crack under the door. Then full illumination. She hadn't heard movement. No creak. No shift. The staircase always makes noise when someone steps on it. Every single time. But the light was on. Her step counter crossed 800. Her hands were shaking now. She whispered, "Stop." Not loudly. Just enough to feel like she'd said something into the room. The step count paused at 987. Her heart rate peaked at 132. 4 full seconds, the number didn't move. Then 988. 989. The hallway light flickered off. The steps resumed. Not downstairs. Not away. The movement map later showed something new. Instead of tracing a path along the floor plan, the line hovered along the hallway wall outside her bedroom. Back and forth. Short, repeated motions, as if pacing directly in front of the door. But the door handle never moved. The video feed remained steady. No visible shift in the handle. No shadow crossing beneath. The steps climbed to 1,204. Then stopped abruptly at 3:19 a.m. The hallway light turned off completely. Her heart rate dropped gradually. She remained sitting upright until 4 a.m. Nothing else happened. In the morning, she replayed the video. At 3:16 a.m., when the hallway light was activated, something else happened. Very subtle. The door handle depressed half a centimeter. Not enough to rotate. Just enough to show pressure. Then it returned to neutral. The movement map showed the pacing pattern outside the door for nearly 3 minutes. Back and forth. Back and forth. Consistent stride length. Consistent rhythm. No staircase noise. No floorboard creak. The steps were being counted, but not heard. That's when she established her rule. Rule number 1. The bedroom door stays locked. Not because it stops the movement, but because the pause outside the door is shorter when it's locked. When she didn't lock it, the pause lasted 4 minutes. When she did, it lasted under 3. It was adjusting, testing duration, measuring resistance, and her body was responding before her mind. Heart rates spike at approach, calm when retreating began, as if some primitive system inside her recognized proximity before she consciously processed it. She didn't delete the watch. She didn't disable tracking. She wanted the data, because if steps were being logged without sound, Then the device was registering weight in a way her ears couldn't. And if something could move through her house without disturbing wood or air, then whatever it was, didn't need the floor. But it still needed the count. The indoor mapping feature wasn't something she had ever paid attention to before. It was designed for treadmill runs and large indoor tracks, estimating directional movement through stride length and gyroscopic data. It wasn't meant to be architectural, but after the pacing outside her bedroom door, she zoomed in. The digital outline of her home was faint but recognizable. Bedroom rectangle, narrow hallway, staircase angle, kitchen open space, living room square. Previous nights showed smooth loop. Downstairs. Around furniture. Upstairs. Pause outside door. Return. But the latest map looked different. Instead of following the hallway floor directly in front of her bedroom, the path hugged the wall itself. Not offset from it. Not parallel at normal walking distance. Overlapping it. As if the steps were being taken inside the drywall. She measured the stride length using the app's export feature. Consistent. Approximately 2.4 feet per step. Normal adult gait. The direction indicator arrows pointed forward. Then reverse. Then forward again. Back and forth. But the distance markers showed something impossible. The pacing path extended beyond the width of the hallway. It overlapped into empty space. Technically inside the wall cavity between her bedroom and the staircase. She walked the hallway during daylight and measured it manually. Tape measure from baseboard to baseboard. 4 feet 2 inches. The pacing line showed movement spanning nearly 6 feet in width. That meant 2 of the recorded steps existed beyond the physical hallway boundary. She exported the data again. No glitch in formatting. The timestamps were precise. 3:14 and 8 seconds AM, Step 8:12, 3:14 and 9 seconds AM, Step 8:13, 3:14 and 10 seconds AM, Step 8:14 even intervals. Human cadence. She stared at the map long enough that the faint lines began to feel like burn marks. She did something careful that afternoon. She placed painter's tape along the hallway wall outside her bedroom. Marked the exact center point of where the pacing had occurred, just to see. If something pressed against that wall, even subtly, she would notice. That night, she stayed awake again. Door locked. Hallway light off. Phone recording the handle. Watch secured tightly on her wrist. At 3:12 a.m., the steps began immediately. No delay this time. No build-up. Just instant accumulation. Her heart rate jumped from 62 to 104 within seconds. She didn't move. Didn't speak. The hallway remained silent. No staircase creaked. No floor shift. At 3:13 a.m., the hallway light flicked on. This time, she watched the crack under the door carefully. The light illuminated evenly. No shadow interruption. The step count crossed 600. Then 700. The pacing resumed outside her door. Back and forth. Back and forth. She focused on the painter's tape through the crack of the door as best she could from her seated angle. Nothing touched it. No distortion in its placement. No tremor in the drywall. But the step count continued climbing. And then something new happened. At 3:15 a.m., the indoor map glitched in real time. The pacing path split into 2 parallel lines. One tracing the hallway wall. The other slightly offset, inside her bedroom, mirroring the exact stride pattern. Her stomach dropped. She hadn't moved. Her feet were still on the mattress, but the second line showed steps pacing along the inside of her bedroom wall. The same wall the hallway path hugged on the other side. 2 synchronized pacing tracks, separated by drywall. Identical stride length. Identical timing. As if something were walking both sides at once. Her heart rate spiked to 132 again. The watch vibrated from the alert. The step count hit 1,204. Then froze. Exactly like before. The hallway light flickered. Then went out. The indoor map lines faded back into a single path. Then disappeared entirely. Session ended automatically at 3:19 a.m. She didn't move for a long time. The house was silent again. Completely ordinary. She unlocked the door slowly and stepped into the hallway. The painter's tape was untouched. Flat against the wall. No dents. No marks. She placed her palm against the drywall. Cool. Solid. No hollow vibration. She turned and placed her palm against the bedroom side of the same wall. Same temperature. Same stillness. But the map showed two walkers. One outside. One inside. Same stride. Same rhythm. That's when she added rule number 2. Rule number 2. Never sleep with your back to that wall. Because if the path could duplicate, if it could mirror, then proximity wasn't measured by doors. It was measured by distance through structure. And walls, apparently, didn't interrupt whatever was being counted. By the 5th night, exhaustion had started to distort her sense of normalcy. Not panic, not hysteria, just fatigue. She moved through her workday like someone slightly underwater, aware, functional, but detached. The hallway pacing replayed in her mind in clean, mechanical loop. Back and forth, back and forth. She didn't tell anyone at work. There's a difference between saying, "I think something is wrong with my watch," and saying, "Something is walking inside my walls." That night, she didn't plan to stay awake. She wanted to test something else. Instead of locking the bedroom door immediately, she left it unlocked but closed. The hallway light was off. The painter's tape remained on the wall outside. The phone camera was positioned slightly lower, angled not just at the handle, but at the bottom gap of the door. If a shadow crossed, she would see it. She lay down facing the opposite wall, not the hallway side. Rule number 2. The watch dimmed. The house settled. She fell asleep around 12:20 a.m. At 3:12 a.m., her watch began logging step. This time, she woke up instantly. Not gradually. Instantly. Like someone had called her name inside her own head. Her heart rate was already elevated, 102 BPM and climbing. She didn't move. Didn't roll over. She just listened. No staircase creak. No floor shift. No hallway sound. But the watch vibrated faintly with step notifications stacking in the background. At 3:14 a.m., the hallway motion sensor light activated. A soft glow appeared beneath the crack of the door. Even. Unbroken. The step count passed 500. Her breathing grew shallow. And then the door handle turned. Slowly. Not abruptly. Not rattling. Just a careful downward rotation. On the video feed, the metal caught the hallway light in a thin reflection as it depressed. She watched it happen live on her phone screen from the corner of her eye. The latch mechanism inside the door made a soft internal click. Not loud, but distinct. The door did not swing open. It remained closed, but the latch was no longer fully engaged. The step counter reached 987. Pause. Her heart rate spiked to 132. The handle held in the depressed position for nearly 3 seconds. Then released. The latch reset. The step count resumed. Back down the hallway. Downstairs. Cross the living room. She heard nothing. Not even the third step creak. The indoor map later showed a full circuit of the house. Then a return upstairs. But this time, there was no pacing outside her door. The path ended directly at it. At 3:18 a.m., the indoor map displayed a single step marker inside her bedroom. Not overlapping the wall. Not mirroring. Inside. Approximately 3 feet from her bed. She stopped breathing. The hallway light flickered. Then went out. The step counter froze at 1,204. Her heart rate gradually declined. She did not turn around. She did not check behind her. She remained facing the wall until sunrise. When light finally entered the room, she rolled over slowly. The bedroom door was closed. Handle upright. No visible damage. The painter's tape outside in the hallway was untouched. But when she checked the indoor map again, the final marker inside her bedroom had shifted slightly. Not 3 feet from the bed anymore. 2. The timestamp read 3:18 and 42 seconds a.m. No further steps recorded, which meant whatever registered that last step didn't leave. It simply stopped moving. She didn't delete the app. She didn't remove the watch. Instead, she did something quieter. She moved the bed 6 inches farther from the hallway wall, then another 6 inches, then another, until the headboard nearly touched the opposite side of the room. That night, she slept on the couch downstairs with the watch on her wrist. At 3:12 a.m., 1,204 steps were logged again, all confined to the upstairs hallway, pacing, back and forth, never coming downstairs, never approaching the couch, as if it preferred the proximity of her bedroom, as if it measured something specific about that space. She sent me the footage. I watched the door handle turn 3 times. Slow, controlled, patient, not forced, not frantic, just testing. And the part that stayed with me wasn't the handle movement. It was the final step marker inside her bedroom. Because steps require weight, and weight requires placement, and placement requires something solid enough to stand. She ended her last message to me with one sentence. I don't think it needs the stairs. Then she stopped responding. Alina did eventually call the police. Not because she expected them to confirm anything unusual, but because she needed a baseline. A professional voice telling her the locks were intact, the structure secure, the house normal. 2 officers arrived mid-afternoon. They checked the doors, the windows, the garage. No signs of forced entry. No damaged frames. No disturbed soil outside. The alarm system log showed no breach during the recorded windows. They walked the hallway. One officer deliberately stepped on the 3rd stair from the bottom. It creaked, but no more than expected for aging wood. She showed them the footage of the handle turning. The younger officer squinted at the screen. Could be pressure change, he said. HVAC kicking on. Wood expanding. She nodded, even though the HVAC schedule didn't align with 3:14 a.m. She showed them the step log. They exchanged a glance. The older officer handed the watch back and said, "If it makes you uncomfortable, don't track it." Track it. That word stayed with her longer than their reassurance did. They weren't dismissive, just grounded. That's what law enforcement is trained to be, grounded in physical evidence. And physically, nothing was wrong. No prints on the handle beyond her own. No structural weaknesses in the walls. No attic access disturbance. They left her with advice that sounded reasonable. Change the batteries in the motion sensors. Update the firmware on the watch. Consider a carbon monoxide detector, just in case. She did all of it. New batteries. Firmware update. CO detector was installed in the hallway outside her bedroom. That night, she didn't wear the watch. She placed it on the dresser instead, just to see. At 3:12 a.m., it logged 0 step. Her heart rate data flatlined because it wasn't on her wrist. The hallway light didn't activate. The door handle didn't move. She slept undisturbed. Morning felt clean. She almost laughed at herself. Maybe it really had been some sensor misinterpretation tied to body movement. Maybe her arm twitching had triggered phantom strides. She wore the watch again the following night. At 3:12 a.m., 1,204 steps logged. The hallway light activated. Her heart rate spiked. The door handle depressed once. The CO detector remained silent. That was the first night the house felt conditional. Quiet when observed. Active when measured. Movement only occurred when the device capable of counting it was active on her body. When the watch was off, the house was quiet. When the watch was worn, the house moved. Not loudly, not violently, but measurably. The officers had given her plausibility. But plausibility didn't account for conditional activation. It didn't explain why the pacing stayed upstairs when she slept downstairs. It didn't explain why the final step marker appeared inside her bedroom only when she wore the device. The next night, she did something controlled. She wore the watch, but she turned off step tracking before bed. Heart rate monitoring remained on. Sleep tracking remained on. but step count disabled. At 3:12 a.m., her heart rate spiked. The hallway light activated. The door handle turned, but no steps were logged. The indoor map remained blank. She lay there trembling, staring at the blank step counter. The movement still occurred, but it wasn't being counted. And that's when she added rule number 3. Rule number 3: if it can't count you, it stays farther away. Because the final step inside her bedroom had only appeared when the count was active. Without step logging, the pacing never crossed the threshold. She didn't feel safer, but she felt informed, and sometimes information is enough to create the illusion of control. She slept with step tracking disabled after that. The hallway light still activated occasionally. The handle still tested once or twice, but the pacing stayed outside, and the indoor map never showed entry again, until the firmware updated itself one night without her consent, and re-enabled every feature by default. After the firmware update, she stopped trusting silence. That was the real aftermath. Not the pacing, not the handle, the listening. When the watch re-enabled step tracking automatically, she didn't notice until morning. 1,204 step. 3:12 to 3:19 a.m. Indoor map, hallway pacing. No entry marker inside the bedroom this time. But the count had resumed. She disabled it again manually. Then she did something different. She removed the watch entirely and placed it in a drawer across the room. Not on the dresser, not charging near her. In a drawer. Closed. That night, 3:12 a.m. passed without incident. No logged steps. No hallway light activation. No handle movement. But she didn't sleep. Because she was listening now. Not for footstep. For absence. The house has a natural rhythm at night. Air cycles. Would shift. Refrigerators hum in predictable intervals. When something interrupts that pattern, even subtly, you feel it. She began cataloging those rhythms mentally. Refrigerator compressor. Every 42-minute. HVAC click. Irregular but audible. Staircase settling. Once between 2 o'clock and 4 a.m. depending on temperature. On the nights she wore the watch, a new rhythm existed. Not audible, but present. An anticipatory tension around 3:10 a.m. Her body would wake slightly before the window, pulse increasing, muscles tightening, as if something in her nervous system recognized the approach of movement before any data confirmed it. Even without the watch in the room, she woke at 3:12 a.m. consistently. Sometimes nothing happened. Sometimes the hallway light flickered once and shut off immediately. No steps logged because nothing was counting, but she felt proximity. Not at the door, not at the wall, in the structure of the house itself, like pressure in the air. Weeks passed like this. She stopped wearing the watch at night permanently. She stopped charging it in the bedroom. She stopped checking the indoor map entirely. But the habit remained. Every night around 3:10, her body would surface from sleep. Her breathing would grow shallow. Her ears would strain against the fan in the hallway she now kept running as white noise. Sometimes she imagined she heard pacing beneath the hum. Sometimes she convinced herself she hadn't. The door handle never turned again once she removed the device entirely. The hallway light activated less frequently. But her heart still spiked at 3:12 a.m. most nights. Even without data. Even without confirmation. That's the part she told me last. It doesn't need to count anymore. I already know the time. She moved houses eventually. New subdivision. Different layout. Carpeted stairs. She didn't bring the painter's tape. She didn't bring the hallway fan. She did bring the watch, but she never wore it to sleep again. Months later, she tested something once. Just once. Curiosity doesn't disappear. It waits. She wore the watch overnight in the new house. Step tracking enabled. Bedroom door locked. At 3:12 a.m., 312 steps logged. No staircase in this house creak. No hallway motion sensor installed. No painter's tape on the walls. The indoor map drew a faint line. Bedroom. Pause. 3 feet from the bed. Then nothing. The path didn't continue. It didn't pace. It didn't explore the new house. It stopped inside the room immediately, as if it didn't need to learn the layout again. She removed the watch at 3:13 a.m. and placed it on the floor across the room. The step count froze. She lay awake until sunrise. She never tested it again, and she ended her final message to me with something simple. Breathing and steps are the same thing. I didn't understand what she meant at first, until I realized both are measurements, both are involuntary rhythms, both can be observed, and once observed, they can be followed. After Alina stopped responding, I started waking up at 3:12 a.m. again. Even without the app, even without a device in the room. The fan would be running, the house would be still, but I would feel something subtle in the structure around me. Not breathing, not pacing, just presence, measured, waiting. And the worst part? I had started counting my own steps during the day without realizing it. Across the warehouse floor, from the break room to the loading dock, matching my stride length unconsciously, wondering if something was matching it back. The third story didn't start with movement. It started with language. The email came from someone named Rafik, a graduate student studying behavioral data analytics. Unlike me and Alina, he leaned into the technology. He trusted systems, trusted patterns, trusted classification. He joined a beta feature called Sleep Talk Analysis. The concept was simple. The app would record sleep speech, transcribe it using AI voice modeling, and provide psychological insight, stress markers, subconscious repetition, emotional keywords. He lived in a small off-campus apartment near a wooded stretch of highway. 3rd floor, thin walls, radiator heat that clicked sharply when it turned on. He described his room in detail. Desk facing the window, bed against the far wall, phone placed on the nightstand every night, microphone unobstructed. No fan. He preferred silence. That's important. Silence gives clarity to audio. The first week, the transcripts were mundane. Fragmented phrases. Don't forget the email. Turn off the stove. Names of professors. Once, he muttered something in Bengali, his first language, but the app mistranslated it. He laughed about that part in the email. Then, on the 8th night, he received a transcript notification with a highlighted segment. Timestamp, 3:17 a.m. Full sentence detected. That wasn't unusual by itself. But the sentence wasn't fragmented. It wasn't slurred. It wasn't emotionally charged. It was structured. He's beginning to notice the interval. He doesn't speak about himself in third person. He doesn't use the word interval casually. He assumed it was a misclassification, so he replayed the audio. The radiator clicked in the background. There was a brief shift of fabric, likely him turning in bed. Then the voice, clear, neutral, male, not whispering, not strained. He's beginning to notice the interval. Rafik told me something subtle that stuck with me. The voice didn't sound like it came from the pillow. It sounded like it came from slightly above the phone, as if someone were leaning over it. He replayed it multiple times, compared it to his own voice recordings from daytime. Pitch analysis, cadence comparison. The vowel shapes didn't match his natural speech pattern. The rhythm was smoother, more deliberate. He reported the anomaly through the beta feedback channel. Automated response. Thank you for your input. Our models improve through real-world variation. The following night, he adjusted his behavior. He moved the phone closer to his pillow, changed its orientation slightly, just to test whether microphone positioning altered transcript accuracy. At 3:17 a.m., another full sentence was logged. He adjusted the device. No slurring, no hesitation, no dreamlike cadence, just observation. Rafik did something different from both me and Alina. He didn't create a rule immediately. He tried to debunk. He ran controlled experiments. He recorded himself reading aloud before bed, compared vocal frequencies, He placed a secondary recorder in the room, a standalone digital recorder separate from the phone. He wanted corroboration. The next night, at 3:17 a.m., the transcript read, "Primary subject is alert." He woke up instantly at that timestamp. Not gradually, instantly. Heart rate elevated. But he hadn't heard the sentence live. Only the radiator clicking. Only ambient silence. He checked the secondary recorder in the morning. No voice. Only the radiator and faint breathing. Which meant one of two things. Either the app fabricated the sentence from noise, or the phone captured audio the secondary recorder did not. He started waking up at 3:15 a.m. intentionally. Just before the window. He would lie still, eyes open, waiting. At 3:17 a.m., the transcript notification would appear in the morning, even though he had remained awake during the entire minute. And one morning, the transcript said something that made him stop experimenting. He thinks wakefulness prevents observation. Not I. Not slurred. Not fragmented. Third person. Analytical. He wrote to me that the tone wasn't threatening. It was clinical, as if the app were narrating him to something else. He hadn't heard a voice in the room. He hadn't felt breathing. He hadn't experienced pacing. Just language. Measured. Recorded. Delivered at 3:17 a.m. The difference between 3:12 and 3:17 feels small. 5 minutes. But patterns are built on small consistencies. He sent me the audio clip. I listened to it in daylight first. The radiator click masked some frequencies, but the sentence was there, clear. He's beginning to notice the interval. That word again, interval. A measured gap between 2 points, a space in time. Not random, not approximate, defined. And that's when I realized something I hadn't said out loud yet. Breathing, step, speech. 3 systems. Same vocabulary. Same minute. That wasn't coincidence. That was structure. Rafik didn't scare easily either. He approached the transcripts the way someone approaches corrupted data. Isolate variables, replicate conditions, compare output. The next night, he left the phone on the desk instead of the nightstand. Microphone facing the room, not the bed. The secondary recorder remained near his pillow. He stayed awake until 3:20 a.m. deliberately. Eyes open, room silent except for the radiator ticking in slow, metallic intervals. At 3:17 a.m. exactly, he checked the phone screen. No notification. No visible activity. He didn't hear anything. At 8:04 a.m., when he woke again after finally sleeping, the transcript summary was waiting. Timestamp, 3:17 a.m. He moved it farther away. He replied immediately. The radiator clicked. There was a faint hum of distant traffic outside. Then the voice. Same tone. Same controlled cadence. Not distorted. Not dreamlike. He moved it farther away. He compared the waveform to the secondary recorder again. The standalone device captured nothing except ambient room sound. No sentence. No voice. The frequency spectrum on the phone recording showed a clean vocal band between 300 and 3000 Hz. Human speech range. He ran it through third-party audio software. No splicing artifacts. No digital stitching markers. The waveform looked organic, which meant either the phone microphone was capturing something physically present that the secondary recorder missed, or the app was generating speech at the processing stage and embedding it seamlessly. He emailed beta support again. No human response, just automated reassurance. AI language modeling occasionally reconstructs fragmented sleep speech into coherent form. Reconstruct. But reconstructing implies source material. He listened to the clip repeatedly in headphones. There was no fragmented bass underneath. No mumbling for the AI to interpret. Just silence, then sentence. He tested something small. The following night, before bed, he spoke directly to the phone. If you're transcribing, say something new. He left it at that. At 3:17 a.m., he woke up abruptly. Heart rate elevated. Room silent. He didn't hear speech live. Morning transcript. Novelty is not required. He stopped reading it for a long time after that. But curiosity is persistent. He scrolled back through older transcripts from the week before the first full sentence appeared. There were faint phrases he hadn't paid attention to. Short fragments. Timing. Interval. Observe. Words that could have been normal sleep talk. But placed together, they formed a pattern. He exported all transcript data into a text file and searched for repetition. The word interval appeared 4 times. The word subject appeared 3. The word primary appeared twice. None of those are words he uses casually in everyday speech. He started waking up before
3:17 again this time. He turned the phone screen face down. He didn't want to see it. At 3:16 a.m., the radiator clicked loudly. He focused on that sound. Grounded himself in it. At 3:17 a.m., he heard something subtle. Not speech, not breath. A shift in air pressure near the desk. Like someone leaning closer to the microphone, he didn't turn his head, didn't move. At 3:18 a.m., the radiator clicked again. Nothing else. Morning transcript. Direct address is unnecessary. He stared at the screen for a long time. He hadn't spoken in his sleep. He hadn't engaged. He hadn't moved the phone. The sentence referenced his attempt to communicate. It referenced intention. And then he noticed something else. The timestamp wasn't always exactly 3 hours 17 minutes and 0 seconds. It varied slightly. 3 hours 16 minutes and 58 seconds. 3 hours 17 minutes and 3 seconds. 3 hours 17 minutes and 1 second. Small deviations, but the interval between the step logs Alina described in the breathing window I experienced was similar. Between 3:12 and 3:19, he cross-referenced our times. Breathing peaked around 2:43 for me. Steps at 3:12 for her. Speech at 3:17 for him. A sequence breath. Movement language increasing complexity. Rafiq sent one final clip. The most recent transcript. Timestamp 3:17 a.m. He is sharing the data. He had never mentioned me in any recording. He had never spoken about emailing anyone, but he had sent me files. And that night, at 3:17 a.m., something had noted it. That's when he created his first rule. Rule number 1, never read transcripts before noon, because reading them in the dark made the room feel occupied. And because acknowledgement seemed to refine the responses, he stopped checking the app in the morning immediately. He waited until the sun was fully up, but the transcripts didn't stop. They grew shorter, more efficient. Observational. He told me the last one before he disabled the beta entirely. Primary subject is listening. Primary. That word again. Breathing had labeled me secondary once. A watch labeled her movements by count. Now language labeled him primary subject. The terminology overlapped. Structured, clinical, measured. As if 3 different systems were using the same taxonomy, and none of them sounded like human sleep talk anymore. The final detail he shared unsettled me more than the sentences. He said the phone felt warm every morning around 3:20 a.m. Not overheated, just active, as if something had used it heavily for exactly 1 minute, an interval measured, consistent. And that minute was always centered on 3:17. Rafiq thought distance would dull it, not physical distance. Temporal. If the transcripts were only read in daylight, maybe they would shrink into something explainable. Less personal, less immediate. So he made it procedural. Wake up, shower, make coffee, open curtains fully, then check the app. No deviations. No midnight curiosity. The first morning he followed the rules strictly. The transcript read, delay acknowledged. He didn't react immediately. He finished his coffee first, then replayed the audio radiator click, faint hum from outside, then the sentence, calm, neutral, delay acknowledged. It wasn't mocking. It wasn't irritated. It sounded logged, as if his new behavior had simply been recorded. The next day, he waited even longer. He left for campus before checking it. Saturday in a crowded library. Sunlight pouring through the tall windows. People moving around him. He opened the app at 11:58 a.m. transcript timestamp, 3:17 a.m. He believes proximity changes outcome. He closed the app instantly. His pulse was steady. He was in public safe, yet the sentence referenced his assumption about daylight and distance. He hadn't spoken that thought aloud. He hadn't written it, but he had believed it. He decided to test something small. That night before bed, he left the phone outside the bedroom, on the kitchen counter. Microphone exposed. Door to the bedroom closed. He slept in silence. At 3:17 a.m. he woke up automatically. The bedroom felt still empty. No phone in the room. He stayed awake until 3:20 a.m. Nothing unusual. In the morning, the transcript read, "Spatial relocation noted." He replayed the audio. It sounded different this time. The acoustics were wider, and the voice came from closer to the microphone than before, as if standing directly over it. He checked the secondary recorder he had left in the bedroom. No speech, which meant the sentence had been recorded in the kitchen, not in his room. He measured the distance from his bed to the counter, approximately 20 feet, 2 walls separating them. The phone had captured speech in the kitchen at 3:17 a.m. While he slept in the bedroom, he checked the building's security footage through the landlord's shared hallway camera. No entry, no exit, no one in the apartment hallway during that window. He began sleeping with the bedroom door locked. Not because he had heard movement, but because proximity seemed to matter. The next transcript read, "Barriers are symbolic." He stopped responding to emails after that. Not because he was panicking, because he was calculating. He sent me one final controlled experiment. He powered the phone completely off at 10 p.m., not airplane mode. Off, removed the battery case. Left it on the desk. At 3:17 a.m. he woke up again. No device running, no microphone active. The room silent. Morning came. He powered the phone back on. The sleep app had logged no session, no audio, no transcript. That night, he made a mistake. He didn't open the app, but he left the phone powered on beside his bed, not recording. Not active in the app, just on. At 3:17 a.m. he woke up to something subtle, not speech, a faint vibration, like a notification that never fully buzzed. But there was a background app usage spike at 3:17 a.m. 1 minute of microphone access logged in the system permissions. He hadn't opened the app, he hadn't started a session, but the microphone had been active. For exactly 60 seconds, he disabled microphone permissions entirely after that. Hard stop. No app access, no background usage allowed. That night, he slept deeply. No waking at 3:17. No transcript. Morning felt quiet, controlled. But the next afternoon, he received a beta email subject line. "Your participation has been logged." He hadn't used the feature. He hadn't enabled permission. The email body was generic. Primary subject engagement remains consistent. He deleted the app, deleted the beta account, changed phones 2 weeks later. New device, fresh setup, no sleep tracking apps installed. And still at 3:17 a.m. he began waking up. No transcripts. No transcripts, no audio, just awareness. He wrote one final message before he stopped it entirely. "I don't think it needs transcription anymore." Breathing continued after deletion. Steps continued after removal. Language might have been the bridge. And once a pattern is understood, it doesn't require translation. It just requires timing. 3:17 a.m., an interval, measured, consistent, and wide enough for something to cross. I didn't realize how deeply his story had settled into me until I checked my own phone system permissions one night out of habit. Microphone usage. 3:17 a.m., 1 minute. No app listed, just system access. And I had fallen asleep with the phone powered on beside me. No sleep tracker installed. No beta feature active. Just a device. Listening. For exactly 60 seconds. Every night, centered on 3:17. What changed everything wasn't a voice. It was a glitch. Rafiq had already deleted the beta program, but before he replaced his phone, he accessed the developer dashboard one last time. Beta testers occasionally received limited back-end visibility, anonymized trend charts, usage spikes, language modeling accuracy rates. That night around 11:40 p.m. the dashboard lagged. Then it loaded something it wasn't supposed to. Instead of summary graphs, a raw transcript feed appeared. User IDs, timestamps, extracted phrases, dozens of them. He took screenshots immediately. Every entry was time-stamped between 3 hours 16 minutes and 58 seconds and 3 hours 17 minutes and 4 seconds AM. Different users, different regions, different time zones, same minute relative to local time, and the phrases. They weren't random, they weren't fragmented, they were structured. Primary subject is listening. Secondary rhythm confirmed, interval stabilized, engagement increased, observation reciprocal, reciprocal. That word didn't appear in his personal transcripts before. He scrolled further. The feed auto-refreshed. New entries populated in real time as midnight rolled across time zones. Every time a region crossed 3:17 a.m., a new cluster of transcripts appeared, like a wave traveling west. Each cluster lasted approximately 60 seconds, then stopped. He filtered by keyword. Interval, primary subject. Listening, all recurring. Across hundreds of users, he realized something unsettling. The app wasn't transcribing sleep talk. It was generating synchronized statements during a 1-minute window globally, not randomly, sequentially, time zone by time zone, following the rotation of the Earth. He cross-checked server logs. Microphone activation spikes aligned perfectly with those transcript clusters. Even for users who hadn't opened the app that night, even for users who hadn't initiated recording sessions, the glitch corrected itself after 3 minutes. The dashboard reverted to analytics mode. Access restricted, but he had screenshots. He sent them to me. Usernames were anonymized, but the phrases were identical in tone to what he'd received. Clinical, measured. Observational, no threats, no dramatic language. Just logging, as if millions of bedrooms were being surveyed for exactly 1 minute each night. He ran a timestamp conversion, 3:17 a.m. local time in one country, then 3:17 a.m. local time in another, then another. It wasn't one global moment, it was sequential. Like a scanning beam moving across the planet. And the transcripts weren't describing dreams, they were describing behavior. He turned the fan higher. She locked the door. He disabled permissions. Primary subject repositioned. He recognized phrasing from our conversations, from me, from Alina, which meant the system wasn't isolated to one user experience. It was adaptive, responsive, tracking engagement patterns. The most unsettling part wasn't the repetition. It was the evolution. Earlier transcripts in the database were simpler, breathing detected, movement logged, speech captured. Later entries were more abstract, resistance noted, barrier symbolic, reciprocal observation active. Language complexity increased over time, as if whatever was speaking was learning. At 3:17 a.m. that night, Rafiq stayed awake in front of the dashboard. The feed flickered again briefly. One new entry appeared before the system locked him out. Data shared. He hadn't posted anything publicly. He had only sent screenshots to me, and in that minute it logged the act. He closed the laptop, unplugged the router, powered off his phone. Saturday in the dark of his apartment, listening to the radiator click. Nothing else moved. No voice in the room. No visible presence. But the structure felt aware, not aggressive, not invasive. Aware, he never accessed the dashboard again. 2 days later, his beta account was terminated for violation of data integrity policy. He didn't contest it. He switched phones, changed email addresses, moved apartments. 6 months later, he never reinstalled any tracking application, but he still woke up at 3:17 a.m. sometimes. When he stopped responding to me entirely, his final message contained only one sentence. It isn't recording us, it's indexing. I didn't understand that word fully until I looked at all three of our experiences side by side. Breathing, rhythm of air, steps, rhythm of movement, speech, rhythm of language, all measurable, all trackable, all occurring within a consistent interval, and always centered around the same minute, 3:17 a.m., an interval wide enough for a scan, long enough to log, short enough to go unnoticed by most. After Rafiq disappeared from contact, I stopped posting online. I stopped reading forums. But one habit remained. Every night around 3:15, my body wakes slightly, not fully, just enough. The fan hum fills the room. The house remains still. I don't check my phone anymore. I don't look at system permissions. I don't count seconds, because I've started to notice something subtle. When I lie completely still and focus on the quiet, there's a faint pressure in the room. Not breathing, not pacing, not speech. Just measurement, like the air itself is waiting for input. And sometimes right at 3:17, my phone screen lights up briefly, no notification, no sound. Then the screen goes dark again, exactly 1 minute later, and I don't touch it because I don't know anymore.